Blood Moon Massacre is an action-packed horror film. It's a slasher film, but it really follows along the lines of being more action-packed rather than just horror itself. Growing up, some of my favorite movies were Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Tremors, Rambo. A lot of those kind of movies had these horror elements in it, like the first Predator or Aliens. They also were action films, but had these horror elements involved in it. Now, the movies that kind of inspired the story would definitely fall into the more slasher categories, stuff like Scream. I love the Scream franchises. I think they're filled with a lot of excitement, a lot of running around, a lot of whodunit, and a lot of survival techniques that's going involved in it. Another one that's really inspiring, and I love these movies, are, well, the originals anyway, would be Halloween with Michael Myers, with Jamie Lee Curtis. But I always love movies like that or Friday the 13th. While I love the first Friday the 13th, a lot of people found the first one kind of boring. Except for me, I thought it was kind of exciting. It was bringing up tension, and it was using its spacing, I felt like, to really kind of set you in the scene. But in real life, the filmmakers were just trying to fill up the screen, fill up the time, and stuff like that. So I understand there was a lot of filler. So by the time you got to part two, when you actually bring Jason Voorhees in, this is the potato sack, one-eyed Jason Voorhees that appeared in the film. It was more action oriented. They had a lot more stunts. They had a lot more scenes, a lot more deaths, a lot more, they just raised the bar. They moved it up to 11. They said, let's go, action. Part 3 was pretty cool. I liked part 3. Part 4, which is, at the time was one of my favorites, because you had Corey Feldman in it, and he was like the main star for me because he was closer to my age, so I related to him. It was almost like watching like the Goonies or something like that. You're watching an adventure story with you inside it, and all of a sudden, like he was in these movies like Lost Boys, which is another one that I really liked. He was in the Goonies, he was in Lost Boys, he was in a lot of these different adventure films. Gremlins, which I thought was another one, which had these horror elements but wasn't necessarily scary. I guess you'd almost call them more of like the PG-13 horror style. But I just was really drawn to him as a character and as a person. I love Tommy Jarvis. I liked that he built his own mask. I thought he was very creative. I thought he was a fun little kid, very smart, and then outsmarts the serial killer at the very end of the movie, saves his sister by shaving off his head and pretending that he's a younger version of Jason to kind of distract Jason from killing his sister Trish. And anyway, I thought it was a really great film and stuff like that. It ended by him killing Jason, spoiler, which was 40 years ago, so you should know by now. So I'm not really giving anything away. And a lot of people hated 5, and for a long time, I hated 5 too. But again, I love those movies that were kind of action and mystery and horror oriented. Like they have these elements in there. So I was a big fan of Scooby-Doo, like anything Scooby-Doo there for a while. Like I love Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, the pup named Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. I loved like anything that had to do with Scooby-Doo. I was a big fan because Pup Named Scooby-Doo came on every Saturday morning, and so, we'd turn on the TV and sit there and eat your bowl of cereal and watch, these Saturday morning cartoons like Bugs Bunny and Daffy, and then, of course, a Pup Named Scooby-Doo, and then I watched the originals and followed it all the way up through most of their original films, even when they got to What's New Scooby-Doo. So I was a big fan of that. So going back as an adult and rewatching part 5, where it feels like you're watching just an R-rated version of Scooby-Doo with a little bit of blood, boobs, guts, and action, it felt like I was kind of watching that. And I hated what they were trying to do with Tommy to turn him into the bad guy, which is the exact same thing they're trying to do with the character Sam from Scream 6. She was also in 5. I was never a big fan of that storyline. I'm glad that's gone. I'm hoping that 7 will be bringing Stu and Sydney back, and it'll be them two fighting each other, and I think that Stu is behind it all, and we'll see how the fan theories play out, but anyway, it's kind of exciting. So, growing up, I watched those type of movies. 6, Friday the 13th is absolutely my favorite. It's always been my favorite, and if you've watched it, you know that the movie starts almost instantly in action. The movie starts with Tommy Jarvis with his friends speeding along on the back roads from where they just escaped from the mental hospital, and he's been having a lot of these hallucinations and issues, which you saw in part 5, where he's been haunted by his past trauma that was created from Jason from part 4. So when he's out of the mental hospital, he decides he has to destroy the body, make sure it's gone once for all. He thinks that'll stop the hallucination, give him the closure that he needs. And so the movie immediately starts kind of action-packed, driving quickly, swerving on the roads, car, tires squealing, stuff like that. They get there, it starts to rain, it starts to get dark and scary. They dig up the grave, and it's almost like an old Abbott and Costello, dark, black and white, kind of like a Boris Karloff type, Bela Lugosi type of movie. You got the cemetery with the cobwebs and the mud and the dirt and the lightning and the rain, and they dig up Jason, and he decides to start hammering his body with this metal spike, and then lightning strikes, hits the spike, brings Jason Voorhees back to life, and now we have Frankenstein zombie Jason. And a lot of people hate that, but I loved it because it gave him not only this supernatural element, but it also made him a little bit more horrifying, because you couldn't kill him. So you could shoot him, you could stab him, you could catch him on fire, blow him up and stuff like that, and you could not stop Jason. Jason was like the Terminator. He's like, whatever you do, you cannot stop him. He's an unstoppable killing force. The first Terminator, of course, my generation, T2 was, the bomb. We all loved it, bringing Arnold back. But as a good guy this time, it was like mind-blowing. It changed the way cinematic history. It was just a great movie overall. But, I love the first Terminator. I thought that was really good. It was a really well sci-fi developed film. Like I said, movies like Aliens, which is my favorite, which is part 2, with Sigourney Weaver.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Yeah, so I was really inspired by a lot of the Alien franchise films. I loved them, the Predator movies and stuff like that. But also one of my other favorite films was watching the Tremors franchise. Like, I loved watching the first Tremors. It's actually one of my top favorite movies in the horror genre, even though it's set during the daytime instead of the nighttime, and it has more action than it is anything else. But there's always this encompassing story and an element that's hidden underneath what's actually going on. So in Tremors, for example, it's really about the friendship that's going on between Val and Earl and their survival against the giant graboids, but it's also about their coming of age and getting out and changing and getting out of perfection. And it's also a love story between him and, because there's a scene with him and Fred Warden are driving down the truck the very first time they're about to meet Rhonda LeBeck, and he was going through his list, and Fred Ward, which is Earl, is making fun of Val, which is played by Kevin Bacon. He's like, yeah, you don't ever go after any girl unless she fits that dumb list of yours. It's like, you will have long blonde hair, big green eyes, world-class breasts, an ass that won't quit, and legs that go all the way up. So he's super excited about meeting this pretty much this girl that's on his list. And, Earl is kind of making fun because, that's the only type of girl you ever go after. And then they get there and she's the opposite. But they build, a trust. They build relationship together. And then in the end, he gets the girl. And if you look at a lot of these movies, you have, the final girl or the final guy. And they get the girl. It's an exciting type of film and stuff like that. So growing up, like I said, Indiana Jones was a big influence for me. My favorite Indiana Jones movie would be Temple of Doom. A lot of people doesn't like that one for some reason. Even Spielberg said that was his least favorite. But Lucas said that they wanted a kind of a middle to be darker toned, kind of like Empire Strikes Back. So this way, the third one, which was The Last Crusade, could be a more edifying, exciting payoff towards the darker, lower themes of part 2. But for me, growing up, because we had the VHS of Temple of Doom, and I just watch it over and over and over and over and over again. And those were the style of films that really influenced me and impacted me growing up. So as I've gotten older and started watching stuff like, It, I started watching the It, Welcome to Derry, and of course my absolute favorite thing, and I've talked about this a lot on social media and Facebook and stuff like that, is I love Stranger Things. Big fan of Stranger Things. I've been a big fan since the start. Just everything about that, I think it was so well done. The Duffer Brothers did an excellent, amazing job at writing and developing characters and creating storylines and bringing passion to the project, and also paying homage to all these different types of stories. Even the first season really broke down 3 different movies by generations. Like each one of the character groups got to do something different. You had the young kids who were following an E.T. storyline, kind of like they're stuck in a Stephen King It novel. So they're going after, again, L is like the E.T. for Mike and Lucas and Will and all them. And the major underlining theme principle is Will is missing, and it's like a supernatural kidnapping. So they gotta go save Will. But the storyline that follows is, like I said, it's like E.T., but for the kids. And for the teenagers, for Nancy and Jonathan and Steve and all them, it's Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a different movie with a different feel and a different tone and a different adventure that's going on with them as they're trying to figure out what kind of monster it is that's coming out and killing all of their friends. And it's doing this. It took Barb, and there's something out there in the darkness that people don't understand, that adults aren't listening to. And so that one is more of a storyline of Friday the 13th. And then, or not Friday the 13th, but more of a Nightmare on Elm Street, more like a Freddy Krueger style film and storyline. While the adults were living more of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, more of a Stephen King or a Steven Spielberg mystery style type of film. And so they did a really good homage to those things. And of course, somebody like myself who's influenced by a lot of the 90s independent filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino and Kevin Smith and stuff like that. Quentin Tarantino does an homage in every single one of his movies with 90% of all of his shots, which are paying tributes to some of his favorite films as he's telling a complete new story. And so that's really what makes this movie different from any other slasher film out there, is this one, I want to tell this in an action-packed story that has horror elements in it. The movie is about an escaped serial killer who's attacking a small town. And so that's the basic concept. I don't want to give too much away. And that sounds like, oh, well, that's been done a bajillion times, But what this movie is it's somewhat procedural, like a NCIS, Law and Order. And it's really following along, instead of a bunch of dumb teenagers, it's actually following along more with some of the adults who are trying to figure out the mystery of what's going on in the town, especially when people start missing left and right. And, of course, as an audience member, you see it's a slasher serial killer, but you don't know who it is. And so it really gives a Scream 5 darker tone vibe. So you have like this elements of something scary and dark, but at the same time, like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, it's an adventure story. And that's really what I want the movie to be about, is it's just really an adventure story. A lot of awesome sequences with action and stuff like that. We've started 2026 right on New Year's Day. I was literally out, of course I watched Stranger Things, but then we shot some footage and stuff like that, got some B-roll shots of some different places and houses that were still decorated for Christmas. We filmed some dialogue scenes and stuff like that, and did some test footage. And right now we have an awesome action sequence that we've kind of put together. I can't show you right now, but it's pretty exciting. And so hopefully the movie is going to be taken off. We're planning on having it finished by the summer of this year. We'll be filming throughout the next couple of months and stuff like that. We still have a big thing with casting. I've had a lot of people reach out to me like, hey, what's up with the deal? Like, when are you going to do casting? All those things we'll announce as soon as possible. I'm like I said, pretty excited. Also, we're working on like a whole franchise merchandising line with this, so it's not just the film. We're looking at like t-shirts, hoodies, ball caps. We're talking about keychains, coffee cups, magnets, like the whole 9 yards. Everything that you could want: keychains, DVDs, Blu-rays, movie posters, everything that you could think of that you want that kind of associates with this storyline. So when we go to the convention up in July, I'll have my table with all the different elements out there, and hopefully we'll have a pre-run film by the time we go to that convention. The plan is for maybe an October release of 2026. However, that is, it's just a couple months away, and even my son was like, that's pushing it, and I agree, especially on an indie level film that I'm fully financing myself. So I'm not doing like a crowdfunding campaign or anything like that. So this is all my movie. Another question I get asked a lot is, what took so long? Why is this movie just now getting worked on? This movie, Blood Moon Massacre, kind of started in 2021. What had happened is in 2018, I just got done with doing a couple of movies, and I started my own production company. And Strong Arm Productions, which was a filmmaking group out of Nashville, closed down. The guy was selling all of his equipment and going to be opening up a gym. So around 2019-ish, I went out and bought like all new material. I was buying just different stuff. I got like everything from jibs to sliders to lights, cameras, actually like everything that you'd need. You know, I was getting really excited and I was kind of go overboard. I was spending all my income tax. I was just spending a lot more money than what I really needed to, but it was an investment to start working on a film. And at that exact same time, I had just finished working on The Prodigal, which was the 6th Western film that we shot at Copper Canyon, and it was done with a scriptment instead of a full script. We had something a little bit more than a treatment. We had the scenes broke down, but it was more of a scriptment where people kind of ad-libbed their dialogue and their story, and it was with Six Gun Entertainment and the Copper Canyon players that kind of came together and made this. The Cowboy Posse, I think, was involved and made this story. And we had a great premiere. Everything was good. And so this is in 2020. That was probably in March of 2020. And so we decided on investing everything that we had and putting it into a Western film. And when we did that, I put all of my life savings and all of my 401k and started production on the Battle of Copper Canyon. Unfortunately, what had happened is I spent all that money and we brought catering in. We brought people that came in from Indiana, from North Carolina. This became a big deal. We had like 50 extras. We rented the entire town of Copper Canyon out. We had porta potties, we had insurance, we had like all this equipment and stuff like that. And the pandemic hit and we were forced to stop filming. So I lost all that money, which sucked. And it also knocked my confidence off because I'd been working on all these projects. I was going to all these red carpet events. I was winning awards. I was getting all these different job offers. I was getting to go to Vegas and LA, and I was meeting like big time people, and I was working on all these different projects, and that just really kind of knocked me to the ground. It hurt me on the inside. It destroyed my confidence, and that's when I decided to go back to school and get my degree in digital cinematography from Full Sail University. And so I went back to school, and as I'm going back to school, and that was towards the beginning of 2021, I decided to develop something just to practice on. I was going to make a little film, like a horror film, with some of my friends. We'd shoot it on, a home video camera on the weekends, or, with our cell phones or whatever. It was just going to be a fun film. It wasn't even supposed to be a big deal. I wasn't going to tell a lot of people. It was going to be more of a demo display, but also I was going to put in some time and effort and make it good. But the more I put into it, the better it got. And the better it got, the more momentum it got. And before you know it, it kind of blew up on the internet, and I had different people from all over the United States asking me questions about the Blood Moon Massacre movie. And so then we made a Blood Moon Massacre website and a page, a Facebook thing, and it started getting a lot of momentum, and it started getting attention to some Hollywood producers. And that's actually where things kind of froze up, is because as momentum started moving forward and we get ready to start filming, we actually made a trailer. And as we're filming the trailer and stuff like this is 2021, 2022, I got an investor from Nashville to come in. They sat down, they read the script, they watched the trailer, they saw the concept videos, they saw some of the scenes that we'd already shot and fell in love with it. And they just said, okay, all right, first of all, you're thinking too small. You says you're going the wrong way. This is big. This is going to be big. We need to focus on this. You need to do a complete rewrite, because what you're thinking right now is home video style. We need something that we can pitch to a studio. So at that time, I had 2 different agents. Showed my agents. They liked the script. With this investor that was involved, they liked the storyline. We had a producer that hopped on board. And then I rewrote the script, and I rewrote it, I think 13 times total, because on the 13th, because Friday the 13th, lucky number 13, I had just gotten done with the 13th draft of the script, and we had done a breakdown budget, and we needed $250,000 to make this movie, which is way more than I would ever want to do. It's more than my, like what I could ever afford and stuff on my own without doing either a crowdfunding campaign or having some secondary, resource or winning the lottery. But that's what the producers wanted. That's what the studio wanted and stuff like that. And they took it out, and we did several meetings. I got a chance to go meet with several different producers and TV show people. Got to go network around. It was pretty awesome. We got to go to Netflix, and I got to meet with Netflix and pitch the movie to them. I had everything from a lookbook, which I had just different ideas and books, posters and stuff from other movies, concept art, breakdowns and stuff like that. I also had the trailer and everything that I got to show them, and they were very interested, but they weren't, I was nobody in the industry compared to like some of these other people, and I'd already had the one failure kind of on my hands. And so they weren't going to risk giving me any kind of money. That's not how this works. But if I finished the film, they were willing to, watch it, do a screener, do a test, and put it on Netflix. So he said, you bring us a finished movie, then we'll help you distribute it. We'll get it out there. It'll be a Netflix movie. But, you have to pay for it. You have to make it, and that's kind of how it works sometimes. So this was still in 2021, heading into 2022. And the movie just kind of sat in limbo for a little bit as we kept doing meeting after meeting after meeting. And finally, the studio that I was kind of dealing with out of Nashville decided to option the script out because they decided to take away some of the burden from me as wanting to be a director and stuff like that. Like, at this point, I'm just letting it go, and it's no longer in my hands. And I gave it to the studio. And the studio out of Nashville, like I said, this is around 2022, bought it for $1,000. It was a 2-year option, so they held the script. They owned the rights. They could make the movie if they wanted to. So that was all of 2023 and 2024. So at the end of 2024, the studio had still not made the movie yet, and the rights came back to my hands towards the tail end of 2024, early part of 2025. So when I finally got the rights back in early part of 2025, I threw a little hints on Facebook talking about it, just a little bit, because I thought I might get right back into it, but I was busy doing other people's projects and working and stuff like that. I was also finishing up school, I graduated at this point, got my degree. I was working on so many different films, and I know I've talked about this, I'm not trying to brag, it's just, it was a blessing for sure, but work just started pouring in my way, and so I was working on doing all these different commercials, whether it was for a Mexican restaurant out of Jackson, or if it was the Bungee Fitness Factory out of Dixon, or if it was Quality Building Supply out of Loboville, and I was building these commercials and doing these like videos and doing music videos in Nashville, and I was making really good money, but I was also making people don't understand how that works really, especially when you're getting hired in. Sometimes, especially freelance, you're getting paid more than minimum wage, but you're, when you figure out your time and your investment and stuff like that, you're not being paid these big thousands of dollar projects. I was only making like $200 a commercial, sometimes more, sometimes less, just depending on what it was, what we were shooting, how in depth it was, stuff like that. Sometimes I'd do a music video and only make like $500, or I might make $2,000. It all just depended on what it was. It's kind of balancing out. But for the most part, each project I was only making just a couple $100. But it was enough that it kept the lights on, paid all the bills, got food in my belly. Everybody was happy and stuff like that. So I wasn't having to worry about, having to get a day job or anything like that. I was a full-time filmmaker, which is what everybody's dream is. I was a struggling full-time filmmaker because there's a reason why they call it a starving artist. But I was working on other people's projects. And at the same time, I started dealing with some of my own projects. I helped, I was working with Gavin Kelly. I was working with October Lane, Nathan Austin, several different people that I've kind of went out and worked with, Joseph Drake, for Scary Tales and Dead Time Stories. So all these kind of things, which is great, but they were distractions from working on some of my projects. And so I ended up putting everything of mine on a back burner. And as I said, around Christmas when I made my last video, that I decided 2026, I needed a break. I was burnt out. I just needed a complete break. And the 2026 is going to be focused all about me. And I've already had literally at least 6 offers within the last 2 weeks. As soon as I made that announcement, I was getting offers like, hey man, I want you to come down and shoot my video. Hey, I need you to come and play this part. Hey, I need you to help me write this. And it was crazy because I was just getting bombarded with different job offers. Some of them didn't pay worth diddly squat. Some of them did offer to pay pretty good. Some of them would be paid on the back end. But it was too much. I finally just said, no, I can't. I can't do any more. And I've put a stop to it. I drew my line in the sand, and I was like, look guys, I love y'all, I love working with you, and I'll continue to work with you. I want to continue to build these relationships, but right now for 2026 it needs to be me. It needs to be focused on my year. I want to work on some of my stories, and it's not that it's anything personal. Right now, literally, I can't tell you how many scripts I have sitting on my email. I have a friend of mine right now who has sent me this Google document where he's broken down and creating a script and stuff like that, and he's not hounding me, But at the same time, he's like, man, have you checked it out? Have you seen the new edits? Have you seen the new? No, I haven't. I have not. You're not the only one. There's a huge line of people that are demanding my time and attention. And, I'm also, trying to do my own thing. And I'm also, now that I'm not doing freelance film gigs, I'm also going to be looking and getting, a day job and stuff like that, so I can continue to pay and finance the film and finance my, my bills, and also, my father. So I just, my time is divided pretty much. And that's something, as a filmmaker, you've got to learn to say no so you can say yes to bigger opportunities. You got to say no sometimes so you can work on yourself and build your soul and fix yourself. And one of the biggest things that I can tell filmmakers or actors, if you're going to make it in the industry, you have to have sustainability. You have to have something that will pay your bills and keep you balanced in the in-between times. So I'm pretty excited because we do have a lot of stuff kind of going on. You're probably wondering, where's this going to shoot? Well, I'm going to shoot this in my hometown of Linden, Tennessee. Growing up, I was definitely the oddball. That's the downside about living in a small town, is if you don't have the right last name, or you don't have the right kind of money, or you don't go to the right kind of churches, or you're not friends with the right kind of people, you become the Eddie Munch of the town. And that's the thing. I found that so fascinating that so many people loved Eddie Munch. And they're like, oh, he's so great. And they were so upset when he died. And they're all crying, bring Eddie back after season 4 from Stranger Things. In real life, those same people who are cheering for Eddie Munch are the same people that would throw rocks at him and call him names and shove him in a locker and treat him like dirt. And if you watch the show, he literally got hunted. Literally. And that's real life, and that happens even now. And so that's kind of how it was growing up and stuff like that. I was definitely the oddball. I was the weird kid that was walking around with a home video camera wearing a black trench coat and was just, I was my own person, and I danced to my own beat of the drum, man. And literally it caused some chaos and some issues and stuff like that. So when I got into the industry professionally, I seeked outside. I just left Linden, I left Tennessee, did most of my films and stuff like that is out of Kentucky. Do a lot of work in Alabama, do a lot of work, like I said, in Kentucky. Have done some in Nashville and Memphis and stuff like that. But I stayed away from doing anything local, and it's funny because I volunteer a lot of time, whether it's picking up trash or we feed the homeless. Like I go to a church in Camden, Tennessee. Don't do anything in Linden, and it's still kind of that way of who you know and what you know sometimes. Because for example, I wanted to join the Chamber of Commerce and go to some of these local meetings and town hall stuff, so I could really be a part of the community, bring something of value, and also volunteer. That's all I want to do is volunteer. What do y'all need from me? I want to be a contributing member to society. And it was like pulling teeth to find out even when the meetings were, because it's not that I wasn't invited, because they're public meetings, everybody's allowed. But I reached out to several different people, and they're like, well, we kind of meet every third Thursday of the month, but we're not meeting this Thursday. So I was like, okay, we might meet next week. So I called them up next week, and they're like, well, we're not really sure. We're probably going to do it next Monday. So, okay, next Monday comes around. It's like, hey, when are y'all doing your meeting? Well, we decided that we're just going to hold off, and we'll do it at the end of next month. So it's like, okay, wait a couple weeks, call them back, and they're like, oh, yeah, no, we already did that meeting. And it's like, yeah, I see what you're doing here. And it's happened more than once, to the point where it's like, all right, I got the hint. I'm not welcome. And, it's sad, but that's how that works. It is a small town. Even not trying to compare myself in any kind of biblical sense, but even Jesus couldn't do a lot in his hometown, because people would be like, is he not the carpenter's son? Yeah, we know him. That's not the Messiah. And, it's like, he came from Galilee. Is anything good can come from Galilee? So it's kind of, I'm from the wrong side of the tracks when it comes to my own hometown. So can anything good come from that side of the tracks? No, I don't think so. And so that's kind of the attitude that I've had for a long time against some of the towns. So it's made me a little bitter when it comes to my own hometown stuff. But again, I volunteer and go to church. I do still some counseling, even though I don't like to do that and stuff like that. I still do some because I have a certificate. I can do marriages. It's a whole different thing. Anyway, so I do a lot of that and stuff. I do that outside of the community in other towns. If I go to Lewis County, to Hoymall or something like that, I can meet the mayor like that. I just say, hey, I want to meet you for a second. I'll go to City Hall without even have to schedule an appointment. They'll sit down, they'll talk to me. We'll have a big powwow, and then they'll give me access to anything I want. Literally just met with with the library, like the Friends of the Library up there, and boom, man, they're like, here, we're going to give you access to this old house, we'll give you access to a train, we'll give you access to all this stuff. And so they give you all this stuff that you have access for free. You're like, hey, I get to use a fire truck or use a police car, but then in your own hometown, it's like pulling teeth, like, hey, man, I want to do something for the town, I want to do a drama club, or I want to do but they don't want to help you. So, like I said, I've been a little bitter for the last couple of years, but that's something that I've worked on personally and decided not only do I want to give back anyway, but also this is where my kids are at, this is where my home is at, so we're going to shoot most of it locally. Now, of course, to make this film work, I'm going to be filming in, it's still supposed to take place in a small town, USA, but it'll still, like, I'll be shooting some stuff in Camden, I'm going to be shooting some stuff in Lexington, maybe shooting some stuff in Jackson, Hohenwald, Parsons, these different places, Clifton, Savannah, but it's all going to be meshed together like it's one little town, like a fictional town, small town USA that's being terrorized by this serial killer. But, again, there's kind of an adventure element to it and stuff like that. So that's all I'm going to say for right now. I'm very excited about the film. I'm excited. I hope you've watched this whole video. I'm sorry, I love to ramble, obviously. I don't do enough of these videos, so that's why I end up making these long content videos, because I don't do short form content very well. But I'm very excited. Like I said, we've been working on a lot of different stuff, working on different merchandise. We're going to have Blu-rays, DVDs. We're going to have posters. We're going to have t-shirts, hoodies. We're going to have blankets. We're going to have puzzles. We're going to have coffee mugs, water bottles, cell phone holders, the whole 9 yards that we're hopefully going to have done when the movie comes out. Even have a board game that I've developed, and working on the board game, working on the logistics, working on the rules and stuff like that. We're going to print off a prototype soon and check out the board game and see how that plays and stuff like that. And all these things actually tie into the overall story of the movie. And so it's pretty exciting. And taking the script and for the novelization of the script, I'm actually taking a combination of all the original rewrites and putting them in together for one novel. We'll also do a making of novel as well, which will have pictures of behind the scenes and photos and stuff like that, as well as documenting all these kind of things, including probably this video. This video might even be in some of the documents because we're talking about it. So anything that's related to that particular film, hopefully we'll put all in there in some form or fashion. So anyway, right now, we got a couple more little shots that we're going to do local, and then we're going to take a little break. We're going to save up some money. We're going to do a couple of stunts and some special effects scenes. We have a prisoner escape. We're going to kill a couple of people, and then we'll start getting into the meat and potatoes of the movie. So be on the lookout. I will be posting casting calls. We'll make everybody very, very aware. You're going to get sick and tired of it. Be like, is this movie ever going to come out? Well, don't worry, this kind of thing happens all the time. Wolf of Wall Street took 7 years to make, and that was with Leonardo DiCaprio and his type of, like, this is Leo money, going to Martin Scorsese type of thing, and it still took 7 years to make. These kind of things happen all the time. I just watched a thing, I think Montauk, which was supposed to be Stranger Things. It took several years to make. It was actually started way earlier in concept development as a found footage film, and it just went through a lot of different stages, and that's how it works. You just have to be patient and you have to work with it. So my biggest advice in any filmmaking group is just keep at it, be patient, and don't give up. Consistency, and really that's the key. You're going to meet people, you're going to grow, you're going to give yourself lots of opportunities, and the opportunities that you can't give yourself, somebody else might see your work and give those opportunities that you can't create yourself. So the most important thing that you could do for yourself as a filmmaker, as a writer, as an actor, a podcast, whatever, as a content creator, is just create. Anyway, that's all I got to say, guys. I love y'all so much. God bless you. Live with passion.